What's been the hardest part of your separation so far? I'm calling all women who are going through separation and divorce to answer this question. Drop a word in the comments. What was your biggest struggle? So now that I'm celebrating 3 years post my separation and 1 year post my actual divorce, I am finally in a place in my life that I want to help other women who are going through this life-shattering experience to go through this experience in a much easier and in a calm and clear-minded way, because this has been the hardest thing I had to go through, and I know how hard it is to go through this life-shattering experience and feeling like you're all alone completely. Divorce isn't just one problem to tackle. It's like a tidal wave of struggles that hit you in the face. It's like a wave of stuff that just keep on falling on you and you don't know where to start. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Mashav and I went through a separation 3 years ago. I know firsthand how overwhelming it can be to go through this process, feeling like you're all alone, doing it all by yourself. It feels like everything demands your urgent attention. It feels like your mental load is at extreme ways, and it feels like you are in a decision fatigue and you can't really wrap your head around any new decisions that you have to make. I want to go into the 16 biggest struggles that I found are the things that women go through once they separated and they're going through this process of rebuilding their life from scratch. So if you went through this separation and you struggled with one or more of these things, drop a comment below and let me know what was the biggest struggle. We have to consider what time frame you are into the separation. And I'm going to talk later about the 4 stages of separation, which can really change depending on where you are, and they can change the urgency and the priority of these different struggles and how you tackle them. I want to start with the struggles that I came up with, and I didn't organize them according to an urgency or priority kind of list because, like I said, every single person has their own priorities and needs and specific situation that requires different things to be prioritized higher. So it's kind of like a list that is not in a specific order. And I want to listen to you guys and see if I pinpointed all of these struggles or I missed something. So if you feel like I missed something, definitely write it here in the comments, because I want to make sure I cover all of the struggles so that I can help other women going through this separation process to have an easier time and feel like someone is there to hold their hand going through this process. Because the hardest thing that I had to go through is just feeling like I'm on my own and no one can be there to help me. It was really hard to get help from my family because no one in my family went through a divorce. My parents were like, we wish we could help you more, but we don't know how to do it. We don't know what's to be done. And I wanted to have the help of my lawyer, but she charged by the hour, and she's like the legal questions way to go. So I couldn't really go to her for any question that wasn't a legal question, and I shouldn't have as well. And I had a therapist. I actually switched from 3 different therapists, and as much as that was essential for my process, it wasn't enough because it was more emotional and mental help, and it wasn't really more actionable person to be logistically there for me. What I actually needed is a kind of a practical project manager, because when you get separated, you're instantly thrown into a huge project managing role, even if you don't know how to do it yourself. It's not like someone teaching you how to do this project. So I wish I had someone to kind of hold my hand while I'm going through this and be my support buddy, my divorce buddy. And this is what I'm trying to build so that other women going through divorce can do this much easier. All right, so let's get started. The first one is legal and logistical challenges. And it's the obvious one, right? And that's why I wanted to put it first, because when you're going through separation, the first thing you need is a lawyer, someone to help you with the legal stuff. And it's a really big subject. It can be a lot of difficult things like paperwork and dividing of assets and custody and getting through mediation or to the court. And it's just a whole bunch of things. But the good thing about this stage is that it's very clear who are you going to connect with to get through this stage. You need your own lawyer, you need a mediator. And this is the one side of going through a separation and divorce that's very clear and known. And this is why I put it first there, because the rest of the list are not so clear. And the second thing I have under my list here is parenting. And this only applies if you have children. especially younger children, but also teens and adolescents. But whenever you're going through a divorce with younger kids, this is one of the major struggles that you have to go through, because you are changing the family dynamic and you have young souls to protect in the process. So parenting can be especially prevalent if you are becoming a single parent all of a sudden. And a lot of times, even if you're sharing custody, one of the moving to another place, suddenly you have to do things that were shared and you have to face them alone. You have to figure out how to be a solo parent all of a sudden, out of nowhere. And you have to kind of balance that with another parent that has maybe different opinions, different values. This is a major life shift that you have to figure out how to do. And these kids are also going through a major life change because their parents are getting a divorce. They're going through a separation. It might have been traumatic for them. And you, as much as you have to deal with your own stuff going on, trying to rebuild your life while and post divorce, you have kids that you have to be there for their emotional support and make sure that they're protected and their well-being is put first. So trying to balance your own needs and your kids' needs is one of the hardest things. And this is why I put it here as the second struggle. So going to the third one that I have here, this is self-worth and confidence. And even though it doesn't feel so urgent, it might not be the first thing that I would tackle if I was in the critical first stage of getting a separation. But definitely at some point, this becomes critical, because many of us women, when we're going through a separation, it's a major breakup from a partner, and it's a really big hit on your self-confidence. A lot of times you come out of a separation and a breakup, you're feeling really undervalued. You feel like your self-worth is on the floor. You feel like you have no confidence. And the one thing I remember that went through my mind when I first got separated is, how will I end up with another relationship if I'm going to be divorced with single parenting to a young kid? And I felt really sad to say, but I felt worthless. And going through a process of re-evaluating yourself and getting your confidence and your self-worth back, as hard as it is super crucial to start and rebuild your new chapter in the best way possible and in an intuitive and intentional way. So I put it here at number 3. And going through to number 4, I wrote financial management, but it's anything that has to do with finances. You know what? This was one of the scariest things for me, because I went from being very secure financially in this marriage to having flipped the switch to not even knowing how I'm going to support myself while I was living in one of the most expensive cities in the world, in Brooklyn, a really expensive neighborhood. And I wanted to stay in this neighborhood for my daughter's school. I didn't want to move her, but it was such a fright for me to figure out how I'm going to cover us financially. Even with the support, like the child support, I was still really unsure. And I didn't do all the financial management of the household when we were married, and suddenly I had to not only teach myself how to do it, I also had to figure out a new career shift so that I can earn more money and that I can kind of go back on my feet financially and figure out what's out there. It was a really scary moment for me financially. Going forward, number 5, I have career and earning potential, which kind of comes with a financial management. I think it comes together. And when you not only have to figure out your financials, what you already have, how to manage your money, because, you know, you might not have the exact same priorities as your ex-husband, or when you were married with your financials, you might need to change things around. You might want to invest your money differently. You might want to save more money all of a sudden, but also you might need a whole new career change. Maybe what you were doing doesn't apply anymore. For me, this was the case. I was planning on creating a business that honestly wasn't relevant anymore for that stage of separation of my life, especially because it was a business that I was planning with my ex, and I was no longer interested in working together with him anymore. So I had to figure out a whole new career, and also a career that would earn me some income right in the beginning, because I needed some cash flow. So this is a kind of 2 struggles that goes a lot together, but I think it's safer to kind of separate it to 2 different struggles. And the next one, number 6, is family and community support systems. This is a major one. You know that when we're going through a major life shift, a very important thing is to have a support system. And it goes without saying, but sometimes the people we rely on for this support are not there for us when we actually need them, when we're going through a separation. It can be our friends that abandon us because they don't like conflict, or they leave you for the other side of the equation. Or it can be your parents who might have older values of not getting a divorce and they're not gonna be helpful. Or it can be like my family, who really wanted to support me, but they didn't really know how to. So I found myself without a lot of friends, without family support, and I was living in a country apart from my family, so I didn't even have that. And I think part of rebuilding your life after separation is figuring out how to recreate these support systems and finding a way for your family to support you and having a community. So it can be different things, but it's really a skill set that you have to acquire, how to develop new relationships, friendship relationship with new people, and rebuild the support networks that you already have. Next on my list, number 7, is your physical health. And I'm writing that here because a lot of women are going through the separation after a long time of being married in toxic relationships, or even in just relationships that are not great for them, and they can start feeling and sensing that their physical health is being affected by it. It's very common because our body is really keeping all of that trauma, and we start feeling a lot of pain, a lot of autoimmune diseases are hitting us at once when we are in these conditions. And a lot of times we just feel like we are beaten up. And if you don't feel that when you're first going through a separation, you might feel it after months or years of being in the process, and it's just wearing you down, and you start feeling like your health is taken a toll, and you can't get your training that you want, you can't get to eat healthy, and your body just feels that because it's such a huge shift, and your mind can't be 100% on your physical health because you're going through this super stressful time. So this is something that's hard to prioritize: fitness, nutrition, and self-care during these crazy times. It's really overwhelming, and I don't blame you. It's one of the toughest struggles to keep feeling good, and then you go into this cycle of feeling bad and then feeling even worse because you can't really take care of yourself. So that was number 7, physical health. And then going to number 8, mental health challenges. This kind of connects back to number 7, physical health, because physical and mental health goes hand in hand. If you are going through a separation and a divorce, you are definitely going through a very stressful period of time in your life. And when you are going through a very long, stressful time, your mental health takes a toll too. Stress gets us anxious, depressed. You can have a hard time concentrating, a hard time falling asleep. If you're sleep deprived, this affects every aspect of your life as well. Trying to manage these symptoms is not something that most of us know intuitively how to do. It might be not your first time going through a period of depression or mental challenges, and it can be your first time trying to cope with that. And even with a therapist, this is some hard stuff to try to cope. Next thing I have here, number 9, living environment. I put it there because many times when we're going through a separation, there's a move that's essential to do. And even if you're the one staying at home and your ex-partner is the one to leave and you're staying in your own home, this is still a hard adaptation because you still have to take care that your environment is adapting according to your new needs. And if you do have to move to a new neighborhood, closer to your family, to a different area, to different schools, or I don't know what, if you have to do a move, it can be even in the neighborhood or to a different neighborhood, a different city, a different country. As far as you go, it's going to be a tough life change because moving is one of the factors that impact your life, and not for the better, because it is one of the hardest things that you can do. And combine that with getting a divorce, this is really tough. Moving to a new city or a new neighborhood, you have to not only do all the move stuff, pack your life, find like the whole project of finding a move company, doing like the school stuff for your kids, finding a new apartment, moving in, unpacking, doing all these stuff, making sure your new home feels like a home. But you also have to find your way in a whole new neighborhood. You have to find new friends in your neighborhood. You have to kind of get used to different surroundings. If you're moving to a new city or new country, you might have some cultural differences that you have to adapt to. But even the little things like the day-to-day things, like where do you buy groceries? Where do you go to the bank? Where do you go to do all your errands, what's the best, park to go to with your kids. And then you also have your kids. If you have children, you actually have to help them go through this move in a good spirit and putting their needs before yours. So I think moving and making a new living environment feels like home. If you have to go through this, it's a major challenge, and I think it's one that really affected me. And next thing, this was number 9, and next on the list is number 10, co-parenting and communication with the ex. This is a dreaded one. No one really loves co-parenting and communicating with the ex. Okay, maybe some people are fine with it, but it's a high stressor, right? Having to stay in contact with the father of your children after you separate from them, or after you had a very, very high impact divorce or whatever that was, can bring back traumatic experiences. It can be triggering. You can have some things unsolved between you two. A lot of parents are still like trying to tackle each other with little things, and even text messaging between you two can feel like a huge strain. I felt that firsthand, and it was a struggle, but some people have a really hard time to communicate that, especially if you have to get the kids from one house to the next all the time, and you have to figure out how to do that, and you have to be constantly in communication with the other parent. So I put it here as number 10. And number 11 here is time management and routine. I think this might not feel urgent or super important, but you have to figure out when you're separating and when you are rebuilding a new life for yourself as a single person, your new life routine, and one that's not connected to another person, and one that you're not a wife anymore, one that you're an individual. And manage this kind of new life is a really tough struggle sometimes, especially if you have to make some major life changes like most of us do. But also establishing these new routines is really critical to creating this intentional and happy new chapter for you. So really don't think about it as something that's not super important, because as you move forward to new stages and more advanced stages of your separation, this becomes more important. So that was number 11. Number 12, boundaries and self-care. If you've gone through this separation and you're trying to rebuild a new life, maybe you want to rebuild other relationships too, with your family, with new connections, new friendships, new romantic connections, and you're suddenly afraid that you're going to have the same issues that you had before, like your boundaries issues that you had with your ex, or stuff that you have to figure out how to do and maintain. And this I put all in the same bucket as self-care, because you have to learn how to prioritize yourself. Sometimes we as women are so used to prioritizing someone else when they're married, their partner, their kids, even like their boss, everyone else but themselves. So suddenly after a separation, going through a divorce, this is the first time in your life sometimes that finally you get to prioritize yourself. And for someone who never did it before, this can be so overwhelming. How do you put yourself and your needs first? And finding boundaries with other people is part of this self-care, I think. Okay, next one is number 13, emotional healing of grief and loss. And this is a long process that can take years sometimes, but it's not only that you have to grieve loss of your loved one, a partner, your ex that you're breaking up from. A lot of the times the loss is the life that you worked so hard to build for years, and the family that you created, and the fantasy that you had in your mind about how your life's going to be. So going through this process of grieving the life that you could have had and you no longer have, it's really painful. It's really hard process to go through, just grieving your fantasy life, your everything that you thought you're going to have and you want. And a lot of times it comes with kind of waking up from this fantasy of what's your ideal life, because you're never going to have that life anymore. If you're going to be a divorced woman, even if you get another chance at that fantasy life, a lot of times we wake up from that fantasy and figure out that society force-fed us this way of living, and we are sort of freed from having to live our life in a certain way. So this is a really long process of emotionally healing this grieving process, processing emotions and navigating the psychological aftermath of divorce. Yep. Okay. So this was number 13. And number 14 here, trust and vulnerability. So we're going through some of the struggles that hit you in a more advanced part of the process of getting a divorce. And this one, it's about learning to trust again. After you've been hurt from your previous relationship, you want to go forward with new relationships, but even with yourself and with relationships that are your family and friends, how do you trust again? For me, this was about just trusting men in general. I felt like I have trust issues with just not knowing who's on my side anymore. So this one is both how to trust other people that think about your best interests at heart, and also try to find a way to trust yourself, to have yourself in a priority, and trust that you are headed to the right direction and that you're doing what's best for your own life, your own kids. Sometimes we self-doubt. Is it the best thing? Did I make a mistake? Should I have left him? Maybe I should have stayed. He moved on. I didn't move on. Maybe I should have stayed with him. He's such a good dad. All these thoughts kind of creep in, making us feel like we might have made a mistake. But believe me, if you went through and pulled the trigger and left your ex, you had a good reason to do it. And you have to kind of find your way to trust yourself, that you have the intuition to know what's best for your own life. And when we are separated from a really long relationship, sometimes we don't know how to trust ourselves anymore and make decisions by ourselves anymore. It's really tough. Okay, moving on to number 15, future planning and goal setting. As you go forward to advancing in your process of separation, suddenly you're faced to some major kind of life decisions. How do you put your own goals and dreams and desires into action? What are your desires? What are your dreams and wants? And how do you turn it into goals and make sure that you get there, right? So this is, for me, I call this like high level life planning and life design. And I think when you're rebuilding life from scratch, you have an amazing opportunity to rebuild a life that's a chapter, that's a great and amazing chapter, better than the last one. And making sure that it is an intentional design, and you can think about the kind of person you want to become and then do the steps to become that person. This is really, really powerful. So once you are past that critical stage, this is time for you to figure out, how do you do that future planning and make sure that not only you survive that divorce, but you thrive after and you create your dream life, basically. Okay, so last one that I have here is dating and relationships, which kind of explains itself, I would say. Getting back into the dating scene, a lot of women has some hard time here, because when you first started dating your ex, if it was like a decade ago, there wasn't any dating apps, and suddenly you're thrown into the deep waters of online dating. And what is it even about? You know, it's so hard to thread the waters here. If you don't know how to not only kind of technically navigate this, what to do in your like profile and all that, but how do you text these people? How do you know, all these really subtle nuances. It's a whole skill set, I would say. But also, do you even want to do the online dating, or do you want to try real life, finding new relationships? And how do you do that? Where do you meet new people? And then sometimes getting a divorce kind of raises questions about your sexuality. Maybe you are actually attracted to women more than men. What's your sexual identity? This is something that for me kind of raised a lot of questions. After my separation, I didn't want to date men anymore because I felt like I don't want to date them. I didn't trust them. I didn't feel like I had the need or want to put myself through this again. So I had to go through another struggle of how to date women. Getting back into the dating scene and navigating relationships so that you find a better relationship. This is my number 16 struggle. Now that I listed all these, let me switch the question back to you. What might I have missed here? I think I covered a lot, but I want to hear from you if I missed any of the struggles that you were having, and also which one of these did you find that you were facing and struggling with the more of the number in the comment below. Which one did you find the most hard to tackle?